Hi, I'm Rob Hubbard, and you're listening to the awesome Theme Well podcast. I hope you enjoy it.
Hey, I'm me. He's him. Welcome to the podcast. This is Scene World. I'm in front of a new backdrop. I've got my 64 here and my Amiga 500 living over there.
Yeah.
And a 128 standing between them like a neglected stepchild.
And hopefully a new intro as well.
Yes. Hopefully you'll be hearing our new theme song. And if not,
new animation as well. Yeah.
Yes. And if not, then I'll be removing this part of the video. This will be our first podcast of 2020.
Exactly. 20 years of Scene World, actually. Because the day Scene World as a group went live was November the 1st in the year 2000.
Yes. And it'll be 6 years of the podcast because I think we started in 2014.
We did.
So in a second, we have Welle, is it pronounced?
Welle Erdball.
Welle Erdball. Yes.
Exactly. Which translates to wave Earth globe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, but we would still call it Welle Erdball in English speaking countries.
Same discussion like last time.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway,
so they're in a minute.
Anyway,
yeah, they're in a minute. We have Welle Erdball in just a second. Before we get to them, we do have some news, some things that have happened since we last spoken to you. Fine people.
Maybe you should have mentioned who we are going to get from them. And that would be Honey and MissMoonlight.
Yes. Yeah. So they're in a second. And before we get to that part, oh my God, my brain is so gone today. I've been moving, everybody. I don't know if you can obviously see behind me that things are different, and I am in a whole new recording area and a whole new retro. I've got more retro in my room here than I've ever had before, and it's giving me the Ghiblies, and I am so riddled with anxiety that you wouldn't. My brain is just not functioning at all.
And it's cold over there because you have a leather jacket on.
I just think it looks cool.
I would sweat.
You would what?
I would be sweating.
Oh, yeah. So, this is getting off to a great start.
Yep. Anyway, I find it exciting that we do this for 20 years already.
Right.
Never thought we would do this for so long. 20 years. 20 years is a long time.
You didn't think that we'd be doing this for this long?
I never had the intention to start a new project and doing it for 20 years. Never thought about it.
Okay.
You know, my sole intention was to make a magazine, a place where anti-scene and Paul scene can meet and unite. I never thought about how long I would do it.
Right. Okay, so if it had stopped after, like a week or so, you would have been okay with that?
No, of course not. But 20 years is a long time.
Yeah, yes it is.
And especially since everybody from outside Canada and USA was telling me it's a waste of time because there's nothing happening over there anyways.
Right.
And I knew that this was not true because in 2008, the last issue then from Driven was released. And I read all the back issues, so I knew that there was a lot going on in America.
Was it 2008 that we finished Driven?
2000, no, sorry. It was 1998 for the first time, and then second time was 2005.
Right, that's what I thought.
Exactly, yeah.
For our less astute listeners, I was part of the Driven staff, so I was there for that.
And then
they returned.
Then what?
I was there for that inglorious ending.
Yeah, And then they were returning 2005 for 2 issues, just to vanish again.
Mm-hmm.
And
There's only 2 issues?
Was 2 issues.
I swear I remember working on more than 2, but maybe one of them didn't get done.
Probably. Yeah, and now we are doing YouTube, podcast, Twitch, like so much more.
Anyway.
Yeah. So news.
Yes. News.
Jim True started his C64 keycap project.
Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of people were one side happy about it because the Phase 5 Indiegogo never went anywhere. And it's very sad because I paid for 5 sets. And on the other hand, Jim doesn't have the best reputation. So
Yes.
Certainly I will not spend an order on 5 sets again. Maybe just 1 or 2 to see if it's going anywhere. So would you advise people to go for that project instead?
If there's going to be a project that gets done, I would say it would be his.
Okay.
Thing where and there's checks and balances too, because there's a lot of other C64 sceners that are backing him on this, that are fairly big in the scene. You know, guys like Robin Harbin, who, you know, with 8-bit show and tell and stuff like that, you know, that are really on board with it. So if you trust those guys, then you can trust that Jim Drew is going to do what he says he'll do.
I guess I will back on it before the Indiegogo ends. But it's good to know your opinion.
The big thing is, and this goes for anything that you're going to purchase, anything you're gonna invest in, is to do your research first. Always figure out who you're.
And yeah. I did, and I had emails with Michael from Phase 5. So it's not like he didn't answer me or I wasn't in touch. I was.
Right.
But in the end, he just stopped making updates.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Other news. Yeah, actually, I was talking yesterday to Pascal Visa, who is the French scener in this CPC scene.
Right.
And his game development contest, the entry submission time has ended now, and there's a new link with all the participants and entries, so we will link to that. It's a bilingual French English CPC Facebook group,
which we linked to, I think, in the last podcast that we did. We had a link to that.
No, that's a different link because it's a new post.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a problem about Facebook.
Right.
It's not going like that. So it's a new link. So we will put that in the podcast description. And I also talked with him about this Peprium charade. You know, this brawler for the Sega Mega Drive and from Watermelon Games.
Right.
That never got released. And there are actually 2 blog posts about this topic. Yeah, and one has a statement from Louis Martins, who is a co-creator of Peprium.
Right.
That blog post is in French, but you can use Google Translate, and it's a bit older. And then there is a new one in English, and they even made a blog for it called a Peprium Fiasco blog. And in this WordPress blog, say they write about the whole story, including the last update Watermelon Games did in May last year.
Right.
And it even goes down to the details of the company being partly American and partly registered in Hong Kong, while the founder is actually living in France. So the company is split between 3 places.
All right.
And it appears that he fired all staff, he didn't pay the developers, and he ran away with the money.
Oh, great.
So it's a pretty tough situation.
Yeah.
And the author of this English blog post even went so far and asked some business friends from Hong Kong, and they drove to the address of Watermelon Games in Hong Kong, and they found there's nothing there. Not even a letterbox where you could send anything to. So and there are even pictures of the address, of the signs on the buildings. So if you want to read I don't know, 2 hours of essay how somebody from France can scam people for 7 years, including co-workers, business owners, graphic guys from the industry, and all those shit. Well, the blog post is amazing. I think I spent like 2 hours yesterday reading through all of it. It's incredible. And I mean, Watermelon Games is like they did like a lot of games, like 2012, 2013, and it was.
I know we've covered some of them on this.
Yes, and as I said, it was a company on 3 places actually. So France, Hong Kong, and USA. And they had staff, and so one of those few, I would say, big commercial retro entities that were still developing new Mega Drive games or republishing old games that weren't around anymore. So it's quite shocking to read about all this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminds me of another company whose address we looked up, and who was just a burned out old building in London.
Yeah, I remember that one.
No. We won't talk about who that is, but yeah.
Yeah, but at least the address was valid.
Yeah, there was a building.
There.
There was a building there. It was just
Yeah.
nobody ever in the building.
Yeah, but somebody is fetching the mail from the letterbox.
Right.
That's different from not even having a sign on the. So that means the whole address is bogus.
Right.
That's a small difference there, because one thing is illegal and the other one isn't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You can have a letterbox address, which is like in the gray area. It's not totally legal, not perfectly legal, but it's not totally illegal, because you can receive mail there and somebody is fetching all the mail.
Right.
But having a bogus address where nobody even can receive mail, that's totally...
That's problematic, is what that is.
That's a serious scam, yeah. Anyway, so we'll link to that. So thanks again to my friend from France for the news.
Mm-hmm. I've got a couple here. So the Witcher 508i, which is a accelerator card for the Amiga 500, which is creating heat back here. This room is actually really warm because I've got my 1541 on. So all I got to do is 20 minutes before I come down here, just turn on the disk drive, and then it's nice and toasty when I get here.
Well, then you should leave your jacket down.
Yeah. But The Witcher 508i, which is an accelerator for the Amiga 500, has been released. It is available from 7-bit, and it gives you, looking at it here, it's a 68,000, 725 and 50 megahertz options. It uses 16 megs of RAM. There's a IDE controller. There's you kickstart 3.1 or up. There's a lot of stuff similar in function, I would say, to the ACA 500 Plus from Individual, but I believe it's internal. But it's a cool product, so it's available. We'll link to where you can grab that. A piece of sad news, actually 2 pieces of sad news. One is that Chuck Peddle, the inventor of the 6502, and one of the driving forces behind the C64 and Commodore in general, and computing, really.
Well, not the Commodore 64 because he left the company by
Right,
then,
right,
but he did the 6502, which was a predecessor
Yes.
from the one that was
Yeah.
in the C64. So
Right. Well, he was more responsible for like the PET and the
exactly.
like the Kim one and
But
stuff like that.
but at that time he left. They just started talking about the VIC-20, but the C64 was not even on the scene yet.
Right, but the whole chipset is basically derived from his stuff.
Yeah.
And he passed away.
82.
Yes. And we had just talked about him a couple of podcasts ago because he received, I think he received an award or
a lifetime achievement award.
Yeah.
From the tech industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So.
Yeah, that was interesting because he spent like 8 minutes of his 12 minutes talk or something just talking about Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah.
Working in the war zones of the world.
Yeah.
Despite having the risk of being killed just to help people not dying of the war. That was very nice of him.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Yeah.
And then also the inventor of the BBS, Randy Seuss, also passed away right before Christmas at the age of 74.
Which is not too old, actually.
It's not.
Chuck Peddle was 82.
Right. He was the guy that he wrote CBBS back in the 70s, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's two big names that we just lost. And it's a real shame. We'll put links to where you can learn more about them.
There are 2 more guys who left. Vaughan Oliver, that at 62, he was a graphic designer. He actually was mentioned in The Guardian. He was a 4AD graphic designer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He unfortunately also died, and a German pioneer, Wolfgang Back, died.
Yes.
He did the first computer show in German television, the WDR Computer Club, and he was one of those guys together with Wolfgang Rudolph, and he unfortunately died at the beginning of December at 76. I also interviewed him.
Yes,
and I released also an English I would say dubbed version. So we will link to that as well.
Yes.
So actually, in total, four tech pioneers died in December.
Yeah.
That's quite a lot.
It is. But balancing that out, our own sweet Nick Vivid has returned. Afterlife BBS is back up. He is back in the scene. He finished his tour.
Really?
Yes.
But didn't he say he wouldn't do anything for a couple of years now?
I heard maybe a year. I think it's just a matter of when he felt like he could get back into it. You know, he did a national tour. He went across the U.S. Doing his show. Then he came back, and I guess he's home now, and he's put Afterlife back up. I don't know how involved he is as far as producing and doing things in the scene, but he is back, at least in that respect.
I hope he will be part of the next issue after this one then again.
I hope so
because in this issue Richard is doing the NTSC fixing. At the first, he never did any NTSC fixing. So wow, Richard is really going beyond.
Yeah.
His
And we love
duties.
Nick. We let Nick know that we'd be here when he came back. It's a.
Of course.
He's a great guy. He's done a lot of stuff, and he's he underrates himself.
I know. Just like Andrew Fisher.
Yeah.
Andrew is exactly like Nick. They are totally equal. Like, I can't get this done, and 30 minutes later, I found a way.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to go check out their boards, his board, it's afterlife.dynu.com, and the port is 6400, and we'll put links to that down there. If you've got a Telnet BBS program, go check it out now. It's Color 64, and it's modded Color 64, which looks really nice.
Right.
I'm one of these guys. I don't like Color 64. Color 64, I always felt was an ugly BBS program, and I just never liked it. But I like his. Looks really, really nice because he's modified it a lot.
Oh, that's Nick.
Yeah.
What do you expect? Other news is hardly noticed by anybody, but there can be bought new Z64 SX, so SX64 keyboard membranes.
Oh, really?
From sellmyretro.com, and it was quickly sold out, and the shop owner just said in the Commodore 64 group on Facebook that they will be back in stock in February.
Awesome, because that was the really weak point of the SX64 was that the keyboard sucked.
I'm happy that mine works like day one. But I'm never using it much, just to play some NTSC games and Scene World.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah. So that would be all my news I'm having.
That's all I've got. The 64, the full-size C64 is out now, too.
True, but it's already sold out in Germany.
Yeah, and if you go online, there are any number of unboxing videos you can see to check it out. I don't have one yet. It's not available in the US yet. If I see one, I may actually get it, because I've been looking at these videos. I've been watching a lot of stuff about it, and it does look pretty cool for what it is.
There are mixed reviews.
There are mixed reviews, but
but also mixed reviews.
Yeah, and I see a lot of stuff where people are like, "Is it worth it to get it?" And it's kind of an issue of like,
what do you expect?
What is anything worth it? Like, this is a casual gaming machine. Now, the problem that I had with the 64 Mini that when it came out was the fact that it had no keyboard, and so doing anything, 64 games more often than not used the keyboard. You had to have the keyboard; it's an integral part.
Well, you had an on-screen keyboard, the OS key.
But when you need to make quick keyboard things, you can't. That doesn't work. If you're controlling your spaceship with keys and you've got to pull up a keyboard and move the thing to where it needs to go, that's not cutting it for me. So this is essentially the same hardware, but it's got the full-size keyboard, which is not as nice as the original 64's keyboard, but it's serviceable. It works. It's USB. I've already seen some posts about people modifying it to just be a keyboard.
Me too.
Yeah. It's got way more USB ports than the Mini. It's got like 3 along the side and another one in the back.
I know.
And so you can plug in your own games and do whatever. There's quite a bit that makes it superior, I feel like, to the Mini. And that was really what was holding me down. I saw the Mini in a couple of stores, and what really held me back from actually getting it was the fact that it was just the keyboard issue. I don't want to pull up an on-screen keyboard. I want to just be able to hit the keys on the machine to do what I want to do. And if you're into casual gaming, or you want to, read an issue of Scene World natively on a C64 without, busting your ass to set up a disk drive or whatever, or an emulator, then this is your perfect solution. You plug it into your TV, you put a USB stick in the side, you go right there, and you're good. Things that I don't like, it doesn't have mouse support, so Geos is out. Unless I mean you can use a joystick with Geos. That's always an option, but I feel like that's inelegant and ugly.
No.
And I guess also because there's no proportional mouse support, paddles are also out. So anything that the 2 games that required paddles are also not going to function.
Yeah, well, we know they use the Forever 64 emulator.
Yeah,
which is who have the license for the ROMs and stuff from Cluanto, and so it's up to them to add mouse support.
Yeah.
But hey, they might add it with the firmware update. I mean, they added a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things, and
but it also, there's a thing that I'm seeing happening too with this, which is that, for instance, the C64 128 group on Facebook, which has largely been anti-talking, you're not allowed to say anything about it. If you say stuff about it, they delete your post and you're gone. We talked about it where they held a poll. Do you want us to include this? And people said yes. And so now they're kind of allowing, they're accepting of a C64 Mini and Maxi, I guess they're calling it, posts in the group, which is great, because it's one of those things where people take a dump on it because it's not a real C64. But on the same level, again, it increases your audience. It increases the amount of people that are using the C64.
But isn't the same group or the same groups now allowing the kind of posts since the Max is out?
Yes, since the full size came out.
Yeah.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, with the release of the full size, I'm seeing like this shift in attitude towards like these reproduction things are no longer bad, because for a long time these were terrible machines. Nobody wants to know anything about them. It's an emulator. It's not real hardware, whatever. And people are starting to understand the fact that, like, not everybody wants to hook up, 3 floppy drives and find an old monitor and figure out how to get this old stuff to work again. Some people just want to plug it into their TV and play a game.
The difference is I grew up with it.
But even people that grew up with it don't necessarily want to go through that process. That, it costs.
I never lost it. I never left it behind, so I always had the hardware.
Right. Well, some people did, leave it behind. They got rid of their stuff, and it costs to get stuff to work again and to get your system up. Some people don't want to spend hundreds of dollars to rebuild their old systems. They're not crazy like us, where I'll go and I'll search eBay until I find, a 1581 or something and try to grab it. Or, they're not going to sit there and take apart and rebuild an Enhancer 2000 drive just to say they've got it. They just want to plug it in, play a game they remember from their youth, and be done with it. And maybe play some of the new games, Sam's Journey or Galencia, or any of these new games that are out. So it's great for that. And talking about Sam's Journey, a copy of Sam's Journey was donated to the Mega 65 group, and it works great on the Mega 65, which is another of these new systems. Which it's not an emulator, it's not an ARM-based system like the 64. It's all FPGA, and that's getting closer and closer to production. And I want one.
I know. I retweeted the post from Portavision on our Twitter.
Yeah, I want one so bad. I don't know why. I just really, really want one. And yeah, I don't know what I'll do with it.
Get a new arm and a new leg.
Yeah, well, no, they're not going to cost that much. They're not ridiculously overpriced. They're somewhat expensive, but I mean, still. Yeah, but I mean, again, you're getting it's a brand new keyboard. It's a brand new case that they've made for it, plus the actual board, which has, I don't know how many man hours have gone into this, rebuilding the ROM, figuring out what each chip does. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and if they're selling it for $500, that's nothing compared to the amount of man hours that have gone into rebuilding this thing.
Another news, by the way, Chris Hülsbeck did a Super Turrican Winter Holiday medley and released it on SoundCloud. We also retweeted that on our Scene World Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And also, C64 TV is back. We had to change the the hoster, and it took a while to get everything back, and now I started updating it with news.
Cool.
So if you have any news for this news portal, feel free to email it to contact@C64TV, and then I will put it online. Barracuda actually supplied a lot of news to me.
Cool.
Thanks for that. Yeah. So it's up and running again.
All right. Yeah. So if that's all we got, then Welle Erdball, our two guests.
Meet Honey and MissMoonlight.
Yes. Yes. Are right over there. So let's go and speak to them. I'm going to jump back in time to my old apartment.
Okay, guys. Enjoy.
Yes. Don't stop. Breaking news really quick before we do something else. Joerg and I have changed our clothes. And suddenly this happened. Tell everybody what happened.
Well, Massimo Caniciani, the CEO of the Italian mobile Commodore brand, just announced a couple of days ago at the beginning of January that there is a new phone coming out this year. It's called the MOS phone.
MOS.
Yeah.
Which
and I would bet it's probably a play on Chuck Peddle, who died in December, unfortunately.
Oh no, it's definitely.
And he was working for MOS. No.
Yeah, it's definitely a play on MOS, but
yeah,
but I don't. There was never a computer called the MOS. MOS was the company that made the chips.
Right.
It was like metal oxide semiconductors or something. It was,
exactly.
Yes. So I mean, I don't understand. Like, okay, I understand the PET.
Yeah.
The Leo, I don't really. There was never a Commodore Leo, so okay, cool. Go in a separate direction. Make something new with the Leo. I'm down with that. MOS.
Anyway, they made a promo video, and it's
show right here.
it's yeah, sure. It's promising to be cheaper, having an incredible long battery life, and so on.
All the things that all the phone manufacturers say that their phone has. It is a 10-core. It says it's 10-core. Looks interesting. It's an Android phone. I mean, yeah.
So basically, what you said about the pet phone, that it's maybe too much, high of the price.
Do we have a price for it yet? Do we have a price?
No, it's just on the homepage. It just says coming soon.
Okay, well, we'll see what the price is, and again, I never used the Leo, so I can't comment on the Leo. I used a pet phone for, it was probably a month or so that I messed around with it before we tried to send it back. The pet phone it wasn't a bad phone. It was just a run-of-the-mill Android phone, which, and there was nothing inherently bad about the phone, just the price point was a little bit high for what you got. So if the MOS phone, and it feels really weird saying that because MOS wasn't pronounced MOS, it was MOS. And this isn't the MOS phone because it's capitalized M and then a small OS. But if it delivers what it is and it's at a price point that doesn't suck, then
I would totally buy it.
Yeah, I had no problem. I don't have a problem with despite what people may think by watching my review video. I do not dislike the Italian Commodore cell phone makers. I like them. I like Massimo was a nice guy. I liked talking to him. Paolo Besser, I do not know if he's still with the company. He is great. I love him to death. He does amazing things on the Amiga and with Friend Up, that stuff. I wish them all the best. I think it's a cool idea for a company, and it's a market that you can actually make some money in. So that's all I have to say on that. Is that that's cool. I don't have an issue with it. I just again, if the price point and the Leo for what the Leo's price point was better than the Pet. I think it was about the same amount. You got about twice as much. I never got to play with it because
Nobody ever reviewed it.
Yeah, nobody reviewed it. I would love to see get a review copy of the Moss phone when it comes out, if they don't hate me so much.
Well, maybe I would even buy one if it's a good phone, and I look at the other reviews. If there are other reviews, in the worst case, you can just, if you're European, you can just send it back within 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And get you and refund your money.
I'm pretty attached to my LG. I will say that I like this phone a whole lot, but if this came out and it had a better, it had better specs and whatnot, then I might even try it.
If they ever released for the American market.
If they released for the U.S. market, yes.
Sure.
So we just needed to share that news with everybody, so we can get on with the rest of our news now.
So, today we are talking to 2 members of a music band, actually, and that would be Welle Erdball, which is called in English Wave Earth Globe. And we are talking to the 2 members, Honey and MissMoonlight.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah. It's great to talk to you finally, especially Honey. The last time I talked to you in person was 19 years ago at Mecha Symposium 2001.
It was long ago.
Long ago, yeah, that's true. So let's start, I would say, how it all started with a music group that's actually using a Commodore 64 for their music. That's kind of unique. Maybe you want to start, Honey? How did that happen to be?
Everything began at Christmas. Christmas 1984. And I became, for my parents, Commodore 64. And start with gaming. Then with a little text adventures. And about 1919 with music. And I think we was the first band that we made Commodore 64 music with lyrics and we sing and vocals.
Mm.
And then after that we start with Welle Erdball.
Yeah, it was actually under a different name originally, and that would be Honigmond.
Yes, Honeymoon and Feinsender and something else, but Welle Erdball is that. Was only about a month that we touched a name with it was Honeymoon, and then after 2 or 3 months it was Welle Erdball.
Ah, interesting. And actually interesting because earlier this year you actually changed and got some new members, I would say.
It was not the first time that we have new members. I think in the turnus of 3 years, we have now many new members in the group. But now we have a perfect symbiosis with MissMoonlight, Cosmo, also very important in the Commodore 64 scene, and Emma Peel, and the Commodore 64. Mm-hmm. And yes, we are a radio station. We are not a music band. We are a radio station with human members only for moderation, and we are not a popularity pop stars. We are only the moderation for the radio station, and the radio station is Welle Erdball, and that's the important thing.
Okay.
That's quite interesting as a concept. Yes.
The members are scheißegal.
Interesting. So let's talk a bit about how did you actually join MissMoonlight. I heard in another interview actually that Honey said the story is so incredible that nobody believes it anyway.
Ja, am besten sagt ihr, it's your turn, I think. MissMoonlight.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible because I visited the Amphi Festival last year in 2018 with my boyfriend. And we were just there as guests, and then Honey came up with with Emma Peel. And they wanted to do some interview, kind of, why are you here? What kind of bands do you want to see? And first, my boyfriend said, no, let's not go in front of the camera. Let's not do that. And then 5 minutes later, they came again to us and asked us again. And it all to sum it up, the next day, they were our company with the camera, and they followed us around during the whole festival day, and we get along so well all together, and it was kind of one wavelength with all of us, and we connected really well. And so it came that a few weeks later I was on stage with the band for the first time. Yeah, really incredible. Not planned at all, but nobody blames us.
The first contact in Welle Erdball with the Commodore 64 for you is what?
Yeah, it was right when we met the first time at the studio. I guess it was 3 weeks after we met, and then Honey made a little test with me, an IQ test made with the Commodore. It was really interesting, and my first contact with it.
It's a very important part of the Welle Erdball casting that the moderators made an IQ test on the Commodore 64.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thing to step into. Actually, you are also active in the demo scene, and you released, as I said, IQ tests as a game and also music collections.
We are musicians and made music with the Commodore 64. Then we made music demos. Sure. What else?
Well, you know, the thing is,
we don't have a label and no deal with factory for records. We made our albums on floppy disk.
And if I'm not mistaken, in the earlier concerts, at least I think it was at Mecha Symposium, you actually had a real Z64SX on stage, right?
Yes, we have 5 of this perfect product. But
Really?
it's not a good computer for stage, I think, because the cards are, you know what I mean, are plugged in, and when you move it, it's out of order.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess at a demo scene group, you have to use the real machines.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because actually at the beginning of November, I was at your concert in Mannheim, and you were explaining to the audience that the Commodore 64 is inside that keyboard emulated.
Yes.
Yeah, so you actually explain to the audience what is used as well, I would say, as a creative way to make your music. For example, you said you made the song about Super 8. You made music about the Commodore 64. So you are actually using a lot of old technology and putting that as a theme in your songs. And a lot of younger audiences, just as you mentioned, MissMoonlight herself, they never have been in touch with those old technologies.
Yeah, but that's our mission, to get the people in touch with that. No? Only for the not only for the reason that these perfect products don't lose in forgetting or something else. Yeah, it's our generation with these products, and it's important products, and it was I think that was an imperfect product. The Commodore 64, the VW Käfer, the Super 8 video camera, and something else. Don't forget it.
It's actually true. I don't know how it is for you, MissMoonlight, to sing songs about old technology that you have never probably even seen or used.
Well, I have used my Walkman a lot.
But not a Super 8 video camera, right?
No, not that.
What is this Moonlight?
But yeah, it's interesting anyway, and I have a thing for old things, and I'm a little bit into all that vintage stuff and a little bit into the vintage look also, so kind
Okay.
of fits. So it's
Wow.
always interesting to learn new things.
And Miss Moonlight is also a child from the 80s, or not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am.
Really?
Yes, I
So
am.
you guys,
You looks younger.
yeah, that's what to say. We're all older than we look. Like retro keeps
That's
young,
a good
probably.
thing to know.
That's probably the big secret. It's the hobby that keeps us young. um, um, it's also interesting because in 2005 there was actually a special thing. You did music for the Super CPU game Metal Dust.
Yes.
And I always wanted to get the chance to ask you about it. I mean, that must be that must be pretty special to make music for a commercial computer game that is made for hardware that not many people use.
Yes, but in 2004, you say?
No, 2005 it was.
Okay. In that year, there was it was possible to. I think that the Super CPU etabliert sich, where in some years for all people. I don't know that Maurice Randall cut the deals.
Yeah, that's another story. Maurice Randall was a weird guy.
Yes, I think the timeline goes in the other direction with the Super CPU. And now it's good old stuff, and it's the Holy Grail.
Yeah, right, yeah.
But nothing more.
At least until someone figures out how to retro engineer it and make new ones.
Yeah.
Well, they did a beta emulation for the Vice emulator of the Super CPU, but of course
it's
that's
not
not
so
as good. Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah. But I would like to know, how was it to make music for it, because it was more CD quality like and not so much SID music, not so much in the way of the music that you do with the original Z64.
Okay, Chester Kochen came to me.
Okay.
And I think he want some heavy metal sounds. And I think that was not cool. But we made only computer music. But it's also not cool to make with this options make computer music.
Mm-hmm.
And then we made with human core. And that was really cool. I never heard before from the Commodore 64 a human core. No? And that's cool. And there's more atmosphere music. And for this game, I think it was good.
Okay. So, who is involved in the productions? Is that something you do yourself? Do you code yourself? I saw on the CSDB you are also credited for graphics.
Yes, I'm the 64 man in the group. But now we have Cosmo, and I think he is much better and greater in the Commodore 64 than I.
Okay. Actually, when I look at the feedback from other people say they are a lot surprised that Welle Erdball is still going on after all those changes. It's like at the beginning of the year you have got a whole new crew, because also Alf is not a part of the group at the moment anymore. So was that difficult for you to have a phase where you were not so active because you had to look for new members?
No, new members is good for our radio station, because the radio station is the important thing, not the human members. The radio station is the important thing, and the human members are scheißegal.
Interesting.
It's kind of like a almost like a Fleetwood Mac kind of thing, where members kind of come and go, and the group today is nothing like it was when it first started off. The interesting thing is that because of the use of computers in the music itself, you can kind of almost like you said, the members aren't so important. A lot of the music that there is there in the form of the computer. It's going to be the same almost every
Yes.
time it gets played. So it's more like the machine itself is the member of the group, and the person, you know, pushing the button isn't necessarily that important.
We made computer music with computers, and
Mhm.
the computers are important, not
Right.
the humans pushing buttons.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I think the German Sprichwort "neue Besen Kerngut." It's very important to have fresh blood in our radio station, and that's why we have new members.
Interesting. And now here's a question, because how do you feel about there's a lot of replacement SID, different SID solutions. There's the what am I thinking of, Joerg? The Swin SID, the Nano Swin
Yeah,
SID, all these things
exactly.
that kind of make SID sounds, but don't quite sound exactly like the original ones. A lot of people are very stuck on the purity of the original SID chips and the original C64s and how they sound. Is that an aspect of what you're doing? Are you happy to incorporate the newer stuff, or do you prefer to like stick with like the original hardware and kind of don't, you know, eschew the newer stuff that they've come out with?
Okay, Welle Erdball prefer the original hardware, and the original hardware is with the original SID 2,
Mhm.
and for music it's the best when you don't use samples.
Right.
It because the filter has more Bandbreite,
Hmm.
and yeah, it sounds very good. To, shut down the video chip, make a blank screen without, you know what I mean?
Right.
Yes, but I think computer music have to make computers, and then the sounds like computer music. Don't sound like a sample piano or a sample what is the normal instruments. It sounds like computer music, and it sounds better than computer music than any other instrument.
Hmm.
It's actually a good point, because the original Swinset actually didn't have the original filters. So you would get a totally different sound than what you would get from the original SID chip. So I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
In the original SID, analogic filters. It's a part of human in the Commodore 64. Analogic filters. That's
Mhm.
perfect.
There was a lot of
Perfect
thought put into
hardware.
that. Yeah, there was a lot of thought put into that original SID. I mean, even to the point where there's an audio inline to it, where you can take. I used to take years ago when I was younger. I had my my radio or stereo or whatever, and I actually had a thing where I could put that on the audio in and actually play my music off of a CD or something through my monitor along with the 64 stuff. So I didn't have to worry about having something else, which is, you know, a lot of things you can't do that with many systems now, or ever in the past, really. Mhm.
So let's talk a bit about the shows. I mean, also one thing that is important about Welle Erdball is the I would say the special things you incorporate in your gigs on stage. For example, in Mannheim, you had these balloons that were flying around, those huge helium balloons, I think it was, and you kind of asked the audience to play with the balloon while you were actually playing a song about this. So maybe talk a bit about that, because I've read that this is also an important aspect of the stage presence of Welle Erdball.
Well, that's honestly one of my most favorite parts of the show, because it gives so much joy to the audience, and it's also very pleasant for us to watch the audience having fun with the balloons, and they're kind of a part of the show and not just watching there and standing and maybe getting bored, because they have to wait a long time. But no, they have something to interact with, and we kind of throw the balloons into the audience, and it's I guess it's been a very long time that they've been a part of the show already. So many years they've been a part of the show, and I think it's a wonderful thing.
So how do you decide the concept of a concert? Do you throw in all ideas from all the band members and then see what's possible on location?
Okay, we look on 28 years of Welle Erdball. we don't need new ideas. We don't need new ideas. We have enough. We have too many ideas, and choose the perfect ideas for the show. Okay, and the show is very important because concerts are for the eyes. When you want to hear the music, you hear the CD or a zip file or something else. It's only for the eyes, and we have the balloons. We have a laser controlled by the Commodore 64 over the user port with a relay card and the best nerd stuffs, things like that. And we also play with the Commodore 64 some songs in real time, also without any EQs or filters or effects. And concerts are for the eyes mainly, I think.
You're just coming off a tour. The last date was on the 23rd of November, from what I'm seeing. How was that? How was that experience? How did you enjoy that, I guess?
Yes, perfect. Now we're on the finish line from the whole tour. On Friday, we play in Frankfurt with OMD from England. I think you know this group, the group, and we are very proud to play with this group. And Rest kann ja MissMoonlight noch was zu sagen.
Yeah, it was, I think, a great time, this whole tour, and especially for me because it was my first tour, a very special experience. And I guess we all worked very well together, and also with all the special effects, I guess it was something for the eyes, for the audience as well. I hope so, at least, that we fulfilled all the wishes.
I was totally happy with it. No question about it.
That's great.
And yeah. And also one thing that I noticed, there were a lot of Gothic listeners present on the concert, actually. And of course, some people were wearing Commodore 64 t-shirts. And when we asked around, they were like, "No, I used to have one, but I'm not active anymore." So you are not only grabbing the retro fans like me, but also the Gothic scene. I think that is because it's going into the electronic synth pop direction. That is kind of what they like to listen to too. So you are kind of getting two audiences at once with your music style.
I think you made too many differences between the audience. The Gothic audience is the same audience than the Commodore 64 because it's the same generation.
Okay.
You can be a Gothic and a Commodore C64 fan. Why not? No?
Of course, that's a good point. Yeah, just was interested how you see it, but it's a good point. Except there was one song that surprised me. I don't know what it was called again, but at some point you were saying, and now we are playing a Nintendo game song, and half of the audience was like, okay, I'm not really interested in that, and the other audience was yeah, that was really like splitting the audience in two.
Yes, why not? But for the audience who don't know what a Nintendo DS is, this is I think they want to hear it.
That comes to another question, in that you do a lot of C64 stuff in the music, and incorporating some DS as well. Is there anything else that you bring in? Is there any do you work with or have you thought about bringing in some Amiga stuff or some other kind of retro sound
With
hardware?
yes, sure. We had made a whole song with I think in American you call it Simon. In Germany we the Sensor.
Yeah. Yep.
Only one of this game toy. We Commodore 64, Nintendo DS, with it's I don't know, with the Robotron. It's from the East Germany computer. We've made one song, and yeah, sure, we love it to use the computers only one for one song, not no? You know what I mean?
You don't mix it up.
Or when we made a Commodore C64 song, we made it with one Commodore 64 because the audience can make the same at home with don't have a complete studio or something else.
Yeah, actually, your most famous song is called Monotone and Minimal.
Yeah, yes. That's the main thing for computer music. That is a minimal. You don't need an orchestra or 1,000 people to make music. You only need one computer with 3 channels, and that's all. And that's enough for computer music.
Right.
We made one song only with from Da 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 Trio, Casio VL tone. You know it?
Of course.
It is one of the greatest German hits, I think. What's in the top 10 in Japan also. For computer music, you only need not the whole stuff you only need one computer from the 80s.
Yeah, you mentioned Japan. You're also very much known in Sweden, actually. Which is kind of interesting because your songs are mostly sung in German.
Yes, but in other countries, the audience don't know Westernhagen, don't know Scorpions or something else. They know Kraftwerk, they know Rammstein, they know Nena with 99 balloons. Mm-hmm. It's all German songs. When I in a theater and there came a band from Mexico or from Africa, I don't want to hear that they German sing in German. I want to hear in African when they came from Africa. I want to know about their culture. Mm-hmm. And Sweden is the Moog synthesizer came from Sweden. The first really popular bands with synthesizers, ABBA, came from Sweden. Yeah? Sweden is the synthesizer country, I think.
Mm. So when you come to the US?
I'm here of flight. You have to come here.
Oh, okay.
Really? Ah. Well, as I spoke to you before, I'm actually trying to get you all to Gamescom, hopefully, to the retro area. Yeah. So that would be in Germany, and Honey and MissMoonlight actually could drive to there. So we just need to get the finances planned, but that's not my part. I'm only trying to gather people to come to the event and do something on stage. Financial matters is somebody else.
Now, as far as so using the 64, now you mentioned before, you only need one machine, one computer. It just, but you made the caveat that it should be from the 80s. And that's an interesting thing that I'd like to get your opinion on, because when people talk about retro computing, a lot of times I kind of get a little about the whole retro computing thing, because I have a C64 and I do graphics. That's my main thing. I'm a graphics guy. And Yeah, well, that's just a backdrop I put on now. I've actually never used this thing before, but but in general, I do graphics on it, and I don't see it when people talk about it being an old machine or a retro machine. I don't think about it as retro computing. This is it's a tool that I use to do a form of artwork, and it's whether it's paint or ink or the computer. This is just the tool that I use to get it done, and I kind of feel like the same thing is with music. Like when you make the distinction between it's a retro computer. Well, it's a computer that was made in the 80s, but if I were to get a guitar from, a 1954 Fender Stratocaster, they're not going to be like, "Oh, you're a retro guitarist." No, it's just a guitar that sounds good that happened to be made back then.
I also say when you play a piano, nobody comes to you and say a piano that's 400 years old. Buy a
Right.
PC. No, but when I use the Commodore 64, oh, that's an old computer. I don't know what it is, but when I make computer music, then it's a perfect product for that.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's the instrument. It's the tool that you use to make it, and the age of it doesn't matter because the sound it puts out is as good today as it was in 1983, if not better, because we have better tools now to utilize it than we did back then.
I think it's other tools are not, was heißt denn authentisch?
Authentic?
Yes.
Mhm.
When you made new wave computer music, I don't know, from the 80s, then you must use the computer from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
No other way, I think.
Right.
When you make a tomato soup, you don't need potatoes.
Right. And I hear a lot of bands today, they're trying to go for an 80s aesthetic as far as the sound that they have, but they're using modern synthesizers and modern instruments to create this sound. And while it has that 80s tinge, there's always something about it that's like nothing in the 80s actually sounded like this. And you can tell that just by listening that they want to sound 80s, but they're not quite hitting it because they don't have the tools from back then.
Cubase Commodore 64 plugins, for example.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Right.
Okay, we don't only use the Commodore 64 for our whole music. No, we only use it for the songs we made with the Commodore 64, and we have other songs, but also songs with analogic synthesizers from the 80s, like Korg, Poly 6, and Oberheim we used very often. But for real authentic music from the 80s, you need the instruments from the 80s. Sure.
So, do you think you will, maybe 10 years forward, you will move and make other computers or consoles part of the new songs? For example, the PlayStation is retro now.
Yeah, well, here's an add-on to that, or a caveat, because when you look at the newer machines, there's a cutoff. I feel like for what you could use. Like the 64 has a certain sound to it. An Amiga has a certain sound to it. After a while, computers all pretty much sound the same because it's just all sampled audio. There's no, like my Mac doesn't have a specific sound to it. It's just whatever's being played through it. And same thing with a PC going back into the 90s. It doesn't have a specific sound unless you're talking about the MIDI files that came with Windows, which nobody wants to hear.
Cards, actually.
Yeah.
Adlib sound cards had a.
We only talk about the sound. It's not only the sound. When you make music, it's also the handling.
Right.
And I hear this. That sounds also good for the handling. And
right.
The product mirroring in the music, but we are not robots. Our heart and my heart is with the Commodore 64, no? And that it was the audience are here. I hope.
I totally agree. I can hear that you're all doing it from the heart and you're really into it. And I find it great that you even get younger people like Miss Moonlight, even if she is older than she looks, as we learned.
And one thing I have to say, the manual from the Commodore 64, German, and I have to read one on the first chapter in German. Wir beglückwünschen Sie, Besitzer eines Commodore 64 zu sein, einem der besten Mikrocomputer der Welt. Und Commodore ist bekannt, freundliche Computer herzustellen. Yeah, you have a Commodore 64, the best microcomputer in the world, and Commodore are known as the factory who made friendly computers. A friend. This is a friend. Ne? Go into the media market and say, I want to buy a computer, a PC, but also a friend.
Right.
Music from friends for friends. Yeah.
Well, when you install Windows 10 the first time, it says, "Hello, we are ready now."
Yeah.
It's kind of mimicking that.
Yeah. We're ready to stop working correctly.
I think each generation must make their own music with the instruments of their generation.
When I was a child, Commodore music, game music was called Plip Plop, and some years ago it changed. Now it's VGM, video game music. So we got our own genre in the music world. Now it's legit, because it's not more plip-plop, it's actually VGM. So when people ask me, what kind of music do you like to listen to? I always say VGM, and everybody's like, what's that? Video game music. Yeah. And then everybody is like, Pac-Man? I'm like, no, not Pac-Man.
Well, and the 64 is also, being from the U.S., we didn't get too much exposure to the demo scene early on. So a lot of the music that I am used to with this was not great. They were they called it SID music, but it's not what was done in demos. It was, the file ended in .mus, and they were raunchy, terrible sounding music. I remember going on to Q-Link, which was like the pre-AOL, and they'd always have these conversions of songs, popular actual real songs, and I would download them thinking, yeah, this is going to be, Africa by Toto, and then you listen to it and it's and it's not at all what you expected to hear from. And then I discovered the demo scene and the music that was being made there, and it blew me away. It's like there's this thing here that was going me before is now like giving me like drum sounds that actually sound like drum sounds, and chords and things like that. There's an actual bass line to it, and it's like it's capable of way more than I had thought it was, just by playing these terrible American games or listening to this terrible American music. And I don't know where I was going with this at all.
You lost track.
Yeah, that thought fell right out of my head. I was leading up to something, and I've no idea what it is anymore.
The demo scene shows what is possible to make with Commodore 64.
Yeah.
We are not from the demo scene. We are in the middle, I think. I think the demo scene music is not so for the audience. It's only for the scene,
right.
Not for the mainstream audience. And we try to make the middle way between this, to make it more for the normal people. Commodore 64 music for the normal people. You know what I mean?
Right. A lot of times demo music is also geared towards whatever demo it happens to be in, so it's cued to the effects that you're seeing, whereas you're making things that I can listen to in the car and crank it up while I'm cruising to work or something, and that feels normal. Whereas if I listen to demo music, my brain's like, well, here's where the scroller's going to start, or here's where the page changes or something, and it's whereas hearing something that is built for listening to rather than built to to provide an accent to something else that you're looking at.
Yes.
You know,
I think the music from the demo scene is okay. It's made with the Commodore 64, but it's not. It sounds not so
Right,
for the
right.
normal people. It sounds like normal music make with the PC or something else.
I should introduce you to my mother, and you explain to her that all the years she was wrong.
I think the demo scene shows what is possible.
That's true. That's true.
And we try to make that it sounds like what is possible, and it also sounds like a Commodore 64 also.
Right.
That's true. That's true. So, how is it for you, Miss Moonlight? Did you have to adapt to the SID music, or did you like it from the start? You can be honest.
Yeah,
Well-
we won't tell the other people in Welle or Erdball. They'll never know.
Actually, I've been listening to Welle Erdball since a few years already. In my younger years, when I went to the discotheque and they were playing songs, I always danced to the songs. So it was really nice to then be a part of the band suddenly. So yes, I like it. It's of course I had to get used to it a little bit, to some sounds, because I also used to listen to metal and more like the rock stuff, but I don't have one music type, so I'm very open, and it's a lot of fun to be on stage with the music.
So, what's your next plans?
Okay, and Friday we play with OMD in Frankfurt. Jahrhundert Hall. Millennium Hall. What's the plans? Next year we have a new radio show. You call it album. We call it radio show.
Okay.
With 3 CDs. One normal album, one with spoken words, and one only with Commodore 64 music and the 64 with software on D64 files, on a CD-ROM track, and the whole layout and all on the CD, the CD text and the label on the CD and the cover we want to make with the Commodore 64.
Oh, okay.
Also the whole artwork.
And print it out with a dot matrix printer.
Okay.
I still remember that sound.
Might take forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was loud. Oh my god,
But only you can do what's a blueprint only with this printer.
That's true. Yeah. Copy paper, and then you have a second copy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
with the what's the name with the was heißt das?
Inkjet printer.
Can do a blueprint.
Or
But
you can't do that with the thermal dot matrix either, like the old Okamates. Can't do it with them either.
That's true. That's actually the reason why there are still ink cartridges for dot matrix printers, because some doctors still need them. That's why you can still get them nowadays, which is great. But some doctors here in Germany at least started to print them out 2 times with a laser printer. So I guess even that will die out in the long run.
Yeah, we still use them at my job.
Yes, but what the others don't know, you still use CPM.
Yes.
At work
At my
too.
job, yeah.
I think today it's only a joke, but it's cool.
Interesting.
With the matrix printer.
I wonder. You said you are afraid of flying, but then how did you make your tour in Sweden? I mean, you didn't.
By ferry high, right?
Really?
With ferry and car. It's
Okay.
10 hours or 15 hours to Stockholm. No problem.
Ah, okay.
No problem without plan. Okay, we play in Spain, in Barcelona, driving by car, I think 25 hours, but why not?
Okay. So you have kind of a band bus or something that you use?
Okay, I come from Hanover. MissMoonlight come from Stuttgart. And it's also 500 kilometers between us. We live in all corners in Germany, and we drive with our personal cars, and our staff is in a little transporter, and we start from Hanover. Then the rest start from their own home.
It's important that you mention it, because for Americans, a lot of Americans tell me that Germany is so small you can drive to everywhere within two hours, and I have to keep telling people from America, no, that's not true. That's not true. Germany is not that small. I'm sorry.
Americans can go 500 kilometers by feet, and then we talk. Well, no.
Yeah, it's really very interesting.
Yeah. Well,
right.
traveling there and driving and doing these road trips is part of the experience. I mean, our own Nick Vivid just finished up a tour. He drove cross country in a van and did his own, and he incorporates the 64 in his music as well. And he traveled all the way across the country and back in a 1981 Ford van, which broke down like 7 times.
And he released his albums on music cassettes.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
We'll start with music cassettes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's who we got to get hooked up. We got to hook these guys up with Nick and get the two of them doing something. That would be awesome.
Remotely over the internet?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Well, then you hope the internet connection doesn't crash during the concert. That would be.
And just Skype with them during the concert.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been while we've been talking, I've been kind of looking and watching some of the videos in the background, which is sort of why I've gotten slightly sidetracked occasionally. Just because it's interesting stuff, and if there's an excuse for me to actually, listen to music whilst I'm supposed to be working, this is as good as reason as any. And I mean, it's great stuff. I love it, and it's the best mix of 64 and other stuff. I'm listening to one right now. It's Starfighter F104G, which is, I guess, a couple years old, and it's 64 heavy. There's some stuff that's not C64. They're like I think the percussion isn't.
It's not made with one Commodore 64, but the spoken samples inside is from the game 64 game Solo Fly 2. Mm-hmm. That's the samples in this song.
Mm.
Yeah. Actually, there's another song called 23, and you are using the Sam voice, which is actually originally a program to read books for blind people.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you use the engine to talk German and to say 23. That was kind of interesting.
To spoke German with this program, because the vocals are only R and E is not the same in English, like in German. But with a bit little bit tricky, you can do it in German with this program. Then it says 23. A little bit with an English accent, 23.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy. I want to do this interview for a long time, and then when I saw this concert, I was like, I have to talk to the guys, because it's amazing. Because normally you talk to people who are either in the demo scene or making music on stage, but it's very unique that you're doing both at the same time. Mm-hmm. So you actually prove to people like, here, this is the SID version of the song that you listened the other day at the concert. So it's really made 100% on the Commodore 64.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes, this is our mission to say the normal people, what is real-time music? Nobody knows that. It's not. It came not from the SID chip with sample rate or MP3 or wave file. It's real time. It's really live music, live computer music.
Mm-hmm.
The Commodore 64 made it live for you. That's
Right.
It's amazing, I think. We are the only one of the bands made live computer music on the stage. Live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to know, how do you actually start working on a piece of music that is using the Commodore 64? Do you just use a music program on the Commodore 64 and then starting with some bleeps and plops and try to see what's looking good?
Big story. I want to be a graphic designer. And a friend of mine has come to me and said, it was 1988, you have a Commodore 64, I want to make music with it. And a friend of him, a friend of my friend said, or he had the program Sound Monitor from Chris Hülsberg. Okay, after a month, my friend came, this is too tricky for me, and give me back my Commodore 64, and he forgot the floppy disk in the drive. And I played, and I see the floppy disk and load the Sound Monitor, and I think it's not so tricky. Make my first song with this in this night. In this first night, I make the first Welle Erdball song, and yeah, this was the start point for it all. And so there's no. I want to be a graphic designer, and in this night, I start to make music with the Commodore 64, my first music.
So it really changed your life.
Yeah. So do you still use the same tools, or do you use newer stuff like JCH's editor or Goat Tracker? I mean, there's different things on different platforms now that let you.
SID is not, because it already had MIDI. I used the Tire module or the Prophet 64 from Sweden.
Okay.
And
wow. The very expensive thing that costs thousands of euros? Pocket money for you.
Yeah, it's peanuts. It was a gift from me, from my friend. It's not, and also you use the Sound Monitor.
Wow, you have good friends.
For me, it's the best for me to handle because I used it a long time ago and was the first program I used it for that. I don't have to think about anything, but only make music. I don't need a manual or something else.
Right.
That's interesting. So maybe at some point you should make a song with Chris Hülsberg as you're using his Sound Monitor.
Yes, why not? I'm here. Say, Chris, come, we can make it. But I think Chris Hülsberg, he wants to make normal music with a Commodore 64. He wants to make guitar music. It sounds like guitar music for me. I want to use it for, I'd say, computer music. It's the real style on music for this machine, I think.
Right. And how about the others in the radio station, as you refer to it? What are their impacts, or what is their input on the music? Do they all contribute? Does everyone contribute to what is being done, or is it mostly like a one-man operation that says, okay, here's what we're doing now?
Okay, the woman's MissMoonlight and Sarah Peer, auch nicht schlecht, Emma Peer is for the singer, no? For the vocals. And yeah, Cosmo made music with the Commodore 64 and me too.
So where can people find your stuff? Do you have a homepage or something?
Right now, we're working on a redesign of the homepage, so it's pretty empty right now. You only can see the latest dates and maybe one picture, but we're working on it. So it's Welle-Erdball.info.
Okay.
So you can get there and see hopefully something better soon.
Great.
I also want to point out to the listeners that they can buy your music. It's on the iTunes store. It's on Spotify. It's a bunch of different places that they can go to find the stuff that you've already put out and to listen to it. So
great.
And we'll put links to everything in the podcast description so that people can go to your site and can check out what you're doing.
Yes,
all right.
but we are only the musicians. We make music. We don't sell music.
Okay.
So thanks a lot for taking the time, guys, and enjoy your dinner, I guess.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And C64 forever.
Yes.
Right, C64 forever.
Definitely.
So this was Honey and MissMoonlight from Welle Erdball. Pretty interesting, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. We're going to put all their information right down there. You can link, or we're going to link to all their stuff. It's down in the podcast description and probably on the screen if you're watching the video version of this, which you should be. You know where to get us. You can email us at podcast@sceneworld.org, correct?
Exactly.
Yes. His website, my website, they exist. I don't know if anything's been done with them in years.
Well, I regularly update my blog, so.
Yeah, I update mine regularly on a decade cycle. So 2024, we're ready for
I just made a new post today, so.
Okay.
All good. All good.
And my dogs have Instagrams, which you should check
Nice.
out because they're adorable.
Instant.
Yes. So until next time, hopefully I'll have more stuff back here the next time that we do this. So
Most
it'll look
people
more
listen
like.
to the MP3 version anyway. So.
Yeah, I know, but they can imagine. Just imagine a stark gray room with nothing in it except like a folding table with a C64 and an Amiga 500, just looking bare and barren.
And your head in front of it.
And, yeah, my giant malformed head floating in front of a microphone. That's what you're looking at.
Yeah.
That's what you're missing if you're listening to the audio version.
Woo. Okay, guys. See you
Okay.
then. Bye-bye.
Bye.